Has your husband cheated on you and you find that he won't answer your questions anymore? Are you at a place where it's very difficult to bring up any questions you have, bring up the betrayal so that you can heal because he shuts down? He shuts down or he avoids, he says he doesn't remember. Anytime you ask a question, does he roll his eyes and go, oh, when will you be over this? Well, today I want to talk about 5 secrets, and I might have some bonus ones as well, on how to get your husband to open up after the betrayal. 5 communication strategies that are maybe new approaches, different ways that maybe you're implementing, maybe it's consistent or not consistent, but we are going to get to the bottom of this. Five ways to really get your husband to open up. So I'm Beth Miller. I am the marriage coach and the founder of the Soulify Wellness Marriage Saver program. I would love for you, those that are in the Facebook group, just to give a thumbs up if this is something that you're experiencing. For those that are watching on YouTube, do the same, a thumbs up. If you're watching from YouTube, feel free to click that bell, that notification, or give a thumbs up and subscribe. And those that are in YouTube, also feel free to join our incredibly supportive private Facebook group with wives who need this support group to want to save their marriages. So anyway, with all that, if you need support, just send me a DM, send a comment below, and myself or someone from my team will get back to you, because this is difficult. This is a massive barrier to being able to heal from infidelity, is to be able to communicate with your partner. If you can't communicate, what are you supposed to do? You're never going to be able to trust until you can trust that he's going to even talk to you about this. So let's talk about this approach. Well, here we go. I'll give you one thing. One thing is, we got to figure out who your authentic self is. How is it that you want to communicate? Is it from a place of shutting down yourself or getting angry? Hi everyone, thanks for watching. And who is it? Who is it that wants to talk? And I once did a blog on how to end an argument in 1 minute. How to end an argument in 1 minute. Well, it sounds so silly, but we don't argue back. That's it. And there's multiple techniques that we can use to diffuse the argument, to let it go, give some time out. But we just don't engage in that. And so which voice within you, I always say we have like these parts within us, and I want you to really have this awareness over the next few days. When you want information, how are you approaching it? How are you showing up? What are the sentences that you're using to start off the conversation? Is it something triggered you and you just kind of jump right into it? Or do you have a warm-up? Is there a warm-up that comes from this? Or are you just so triggered? Like I said, you jump into it. Because a warm-up is really great in this. And I'm kind of off script right now, but we'll say step 1, you have a warm-up. And the warm-up is using like really gentle statements like, is now a good time to talk? Something's been on my mind. Can we chat now? They say, no, let's chat a little bit later. I just need 10 minutes of your time. So it's number 1, getting permission on when you can talk. The second part of this really is getting curious. When we want them to open up, we want to get curious on, maybe don't jump right into the question you want to ask. If anything, write the question down and see if there's mini questions that can go that would lead up to it. Instead of just being like, why would you do this to me? Do you really love me? It feels like our past is completely flawed. Starting with a little question, such as, can you recall, I'm trying to think of a little one here. Can you recall a time when you felt disconnected from me? Maybe it's something like that. Like it takes it back to the relationship. And can you recall a time where you didn't feel connected? But that would be one of the first sentences. So what I would do is, write down your big question and see if you can kind of, I don't want to say dumb it down, but make it less of an opportunity for him to get really, really defensive, less critical. Maybe that's what it is. It's safe. It's like a exploratory, safe question. So really getting to a place where you can figure out who your voice is, like, who am I? Am I someone that wants to yell? I have women who come to me and my clients are like, I don't even know who this person is, like who they are. They're like, I'm angry all the time. I'm so mad. I'm sad. I used to be happy. I used to be really confident. I used to feel like I had a good grasp on life. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I can't focus anymore. I'm like doing a horrible job at work. I feel like I'm trying to put on a smile for my kids and it's exhausting. So figuring out who you want to be. And I think spending some time writing that down is, my true self, my authentic self is happy. She feels enough. She's kind. She's at peace. She feels light. She feels like she has these loving boundaries, and these loving boundaries are going to help with these conversations. We also have to listen to our intuition. Our intuition will tell us, is now a good time to talk? Is now really a good time? I can sense he just came home. I can sense he's tired. Is this a good time to talk? And if it's intuitively is not a good time, we really have to go somewhere else. And whether you have anyone to talk to, your journal, grab your journal. And this might sound so cliche, grab your journal, or just go scream in the shower, scream in the car, scream into a pillow, get that energy out so it doesn't get projected onto him. So is it a good time to talk? Figure out what version of yourself wants to speak up. and starting with these kind of soft startups is what I like to call it, because if you listen to the Gottman Institute talks about 4 horsemen. And the Gottmans, for those who don't know, the Gottmans they have an incredible, they've been studying marriages for years, like 50 years. I could be wrong on that exact number, but they've been studying for decades. And they have a very good success rate of predicting if a couple will make it. And they have these 4 horsemen, which are really critical in this process. And the first one is, if you are critical of your partner, the other one will get very defensive. So if one's critical, so if your question that you're asking him comes across as really critical, he will get defensive. When he gets defensive, what happens is contempt starts to build, or contempt for you too. You both start to develop contempt, which can then lead to stonewalling, and he might stonewall if he starts to feel contempt. So really having awareness of this cycle, defense or critical to defensiveness to growing contempt to then stonewalling and shutting down. So let me go through my notes here, things I've written down for us here. So yeah, assess how you talk to yourself and how do you talk to your partner. Like in your head, is there a lot of negative dialogue right now? Tons of negative dialogue. If so, is that the story you're telling? We talk in stories, we think in stories. So really getting a handle on what's the inner voice saying, what stories is it telling you, and getting them down on paper. When you have them down on paper, we can do a few things. You can analyze them for what emotion is with them. Are they all based out of fear? Are they factual? Because your mind is trying to make sense of things, it starts to make up these hypothetical situations, and that's okay. Perfectly normal. We just want to not get stuck on them. And I have some other lives that you can listen to, other trainings about how to end those intrusive thoughts. But listening to that inner dialogue is really important. I already kind of alluded to, how do you talk to your spouse? How are you speaking to him? So think about the last time you got angry at your spouse. What was the reason you got mad? And if you're always angry when communicating, what's going to happen is he might start to shut down. And it sounds so silly, but he has to build trust with you too, that he can come to you. I had a client that this memory always sticks out for me. Her husband's extremely angry, always shutting down, not in touch with his feelings. And what she did is she worked on herself. Like, it's phenomenal when we can release our pain and emotions, our beliefs about him, ourselves. I can't trust, I'm not enough, I'm a failure, I'm a fool for staying. Conflict makes me uncomfortable, people pleasing, over helping. Just the fear. When we can release a lot of that, we feel like very confident ourselves. We're like, this is exactly where I need to be. This is exactly what I need to be doing right now is my marriage. I want to give it one more try. I'm not ready to quit. I'm doing this for myself, my family, and for my marriage. And that's a very empowering place to be. A lot of women and obviously most of you here because you're watching this video, but there's some women who they just go into a place of just anger and they make a decision to leave out of anger. Some leave from an empowered place, but a lot do just jump because it's so hard. They have this belief of, you cheat on me, I'm gone. And I respect that belief, but there's a lot of women, like the ones that are here watching, that, you know what, you're not ready. You need to give it a good go. And that good go is getting yourself in a good place. Because even if you're to leave, you're still going to be filled with possible resentment, anger. That trust issue may carry on to other relationships if you ever get into them. So it's so important that we work on ourselves first. And when you get rid of a lot of this anger, it's not going to show up with your partner. You're not projecting it because it's not fair. It's not right. He doesn't have any consequences, it feels like, right? He's not being punished. He did this to you. And so we often want to project that anger onto him. We want them to suffer. We really do, in some capacity. Not always, but some people really just want them to be in pain too. They want them to feel, their husband to feel it. So we so often will go into angry communicating. Or you might come in with the intention, that today is a new day. Today is a fresh start. Today I'm not going to go angry, but we get stuck. And then something happens and you're just back into that arguing. So think about it like this. If you want to quit smoking, we got to get rid of the stress. Whatever that stressor is, whatever the trigger is, we can get rid of it, but we can't always, because work stress exists. His infidelity exists. It's part of your story. So we have to figure out how to live with it, how this can be your new way of living, but not in a way that this is consuming you every day. This happened. It's part of your story. But we want to close that chapter and be able to move forward from an empowered, happier place. And so when it comes to, I have a hypnosis background, and what happens is if someone's, and I don't work very often with people who want to quit smoking. I do some weight loss and some other stuff, but for the most part, I'm strictly working with women who have the trauma of infidelity. This is my specialty. But if you were to work with someone that was smoking, we want to get to that feeling of anxiety. Why are they feeling anxiety from stress from work? And so we have to get to that root of it. Where did it come from? Why is it there? And so same thing, we got to figure out why you keep getting upset at your husband. Is it just trust? If it's trust, then we got to figure out how we can trust again. So anyway, how do you talk to your spouse? Dealing with this pain, dealing with the trust, the broken trust, so that today you can see, today I choose to trust. Today I choose to communicate without anger. And getting yourself to that place where we've released a lot of the emotions and the beliefs. So yeah, pretty much there. Heal the past trauma. So do you easily become angry when your husband disagrees with you? And many of these issues can be traced back to past traumas, not just your marriage, but sometimes past relationships. So many of the wives I work with, they were cheated on by high school boyfriends. It's maybe the third time they've been cheated on by their college boyfriend. And so this can be really, really painful as well. And it can bring up some of this past hurt. And I think the next thing, like I talked about the 4 horsemen, like I'm beyond five secrets now to doing this, but another thing too is with your husband in that 4 horsemen that we talked about, Gottman's four horsemen, we have the criticize, defensiveness. And so if he senses that you're criticizing him because we haven't used a soft startup, like, do you have a chance to talk? I want to ask you a few questions. If now's not the right time, can we talk a little bit later? It's just one question. We got to identify what makes your spouse shut down. And so you've seen him shut down, right? And it's very difficult to get him to open up. He might walk away or say, stop bringing it up. So why is he doing this? Why is he feeling so criticized? And I think a lot of times they're filled with guilt, anger. It's painful for them to have to talk about it. They're not necessarily in touch with their own feelings, and they feel criticized, judged, and attacked, and overwhelmed. And maybe he's feeling not heard either. So we really have to meet him where he's at. And if he's not willing to talk about this right now, we could use another strategy that comes from the marriage helper. A marriage helper uses SMART contact, SMART, SMART being stop push behaviors. And this might be stopping all questions, whether it's for 1 week. I'll tell my clients if this feels right, maybe every Sunday, just check in. Do you want to use the SMART contact? And that means not asking any questions for a week. And what this allows you to do, allows you to start to build a friendship where you're talking about everything but the infidelity. And that might seem like, okay, then I'm being foolish, I'm faking it. But as long as you have another outlet to take those things that you want to ask him, whether it's journaling, whether it's a friend, whether it's just like this inner knowing that, you know what, this week I'm going to table all these questions. I'm going to write them down, and eventually I'll figure out which ones I want to ask. And you know what happens in a week or 2 weeks, you might actually not need to ask those questions anymore. You might look at it and be like, don't need it. Also, when you're looking at that list of questions, checking in with yourself, this list of, let's see here, you could ask yourself, like, why am I asking this? That's a good one. Like, why do I need to ask this question? Is it actually for my healing, or is it just, I don't know, maybe I'm trying to poke the bear and make him more upset? Or do I need to know this? In terms of priority, which of these questions are essential that I ask right away? So let's try this. It's SMART communication might work. You can look it up. SMART stands for stop push behaviors. M is like manage business items. And then there's like letting him like bring up these tough things. And then even the statement of like, you can open up to me, you can tell me anything. It's a great point, but if they've never practiced that behavior before, if they have in the past, great, this is something that they're familiar with. But if there's someone that's been very shut down, not in touch with their emotions, sensing that they grew up in a family that didn't nurture that, or in a family situation where he was shut down a lot, it wasn't safe for him to express his emotions, this is a new skill he has to learn. And not that you need to be his therapist in all of this, but you need to have that empathy and that acceptance that this is new. He's never had to do this before. So with that one said, we can talk more about that one later, but it really is meeting him where he's at and starting to get him to talk about, maybe open up about other situations. Like if he's not a guy that goes deep on anything, he may most likely not want to go deep in the affair either. So meeting him where he's at. What else do we want to talk about here? Yeah, I consider like the location of your conversations too. Where are you talking them? Time of day? When are you having them? What's ideal? And I know if you're a busy mom, this is really difficult because kids are around, but whether you can get a babysitter over, a parent over, whether there's someone who can watch the kids so you can go for a little walk, go for a drive, sit in the car, sitting face to face, looking at each other. Let's see, someone told me recently, I don't have the information for this, but men can do better when they're driving because they're looking forward, not necessarily at you. So sometimes that can be helpful too. They're not looking into your eyes. The body language is so much of communication that maybe they're not seeing your body language, so it's not as painful. They're just really focusing on the words and the tone. Body language is the number one form of communication. Tone is the next one. And the last one's the words. Words is only 7%. So I can say, I love you, or I can say, I love you, or I can say, I love you. And I said, I love you, but in terms of the body language, or it was the body language and the tone makes such a difference in that communication. All right, finding common ground. Okay, he shuts down. So that's where we have to get to a place of common ground. I see that you don't want to talk about this, and I understand that this is not easy. At some point, I need to be able to ask a couple questions. What if I give you 3 questions and you pick one? And again, you're using those questions like kind of the dumbed down questions for sure. Anyway, if anyone in here has questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. So finding common ground. So at times you'll definitely have different opinions. You're both entitled to your own reality, even if you know his reality is ridiculous and it's so unreal. That's his reality right now. That's his story he's telling himself, and he's not going to move on it. So accepting that you can only push that reality so much until he decides to come to terms with it. So finding this common ground. It's okay that you have different opinions. It's not necessarily right what he's thinking, but you don't have to agree on everything at one time. He's hearing you. It may take some time for that to sink in and some reflection. Sometimes people say things, and if we're so defensive, feeling so criticized, we're just like, nope, that's not me. But upon reflection later, like inside, he might start to kind of absorb that, think about it a little bit more. So presenting those different perspectives, that's okay. Being open and honest from that authentic you, like, I'm really hurt, but I can see you don't want to talk about this right now. I'd love to be able to come back to this conversation when we're both in a better position to do so. And talking to him without criticism, for sure. I statements, I feel this when this happened. What I need is this. Is this something that you can do for me? All right, quick question here. How to get someone who is avoidant and defensive to open up? Yeah, okay. Watch the beginning of the live. If you haven't seen it already, just kind of rewind back. But how do you do it? Essentially, you got to meet them where they're at. They are defensive because they feel criticized. And so we have to figure, okay, what did I say that makes them feel criticized? And we're entitled to our own opinions, our own reality, and we can't always change someone. And sometimes we just want to hammer it home, like, you did this to me, you hurt me, it was an emotional affair, it's wrong, and they might not be seeing it. It's not okay that you spent this much time with her. You shouldn't have texted her 50 times in one day. Why are the phone bills saying you talked for an hour on this day? He's entitled to his own reality, and for some reason he's justifying it in that moment. So I think I talked about how we can kind of break the questions down into smaller, less critical questions. And so check out the beginning of the live for that one. Power of the pause. I love power of the pause. Power of the pause is one question, pause. Tell me about this. I saw that you talked for 1 hour on January 26th. But again, we have to figure out why you're asking that. Is that really important? Instead, it could be, again, I mentioned earlier, tell me a time that you felt like I didn't meet your needs. And then that one's nice too, because it's like, what should I have done better? Instead of us just continuing to poke at them, like, you should have done this, you should have done this. Like, can you tell me a time where I could have met your needs better? Very less invasive. It's not critical towards them. There's intention behind it because there's self-improvement on your part, but you ask that and then you just pause. Power of the pause is really, really important. And yeah, listening without judgment, like nodding and all that. So anyway, if this has been helpful, send me a little note, thumbs up below. Feel free to join the Facebook group if you're watching this on YouTube. And other than that, thank you everyone for watching. Any questions, I'm happy to help. All right, bye everyone.